Hi guys, and welcome back to another week of Cat Talks reading. This is Cat Talks, the place where I talk about books and reading, and I have a pretty hefty TBR for this week, so let's have a look. So obviously I want to finish reading China Mieville's The City and the City. If you watched last week's vlog, you'll know that I am absolutely raving about this one and I cannot wait to continue reading. The City and the City is about a city and another city. So there are places of the city which belong to one and not the other. There are places that kind of belong to both, but like one building will belong to one city and then its neighbour might belong to the other. And you're not allowed to see the buildings that don't belong to your city. You're not allowed to hear its sounds, you're not allowed to smell its smells. If there is a car driving towards you, you've got to kind of move without showing that you've seen the car. And this is the world that we live in this book, and a young girl turns up murdered. So we follow a detective trying to solve the murder and kind of like living in this city and a city. The next book I'll be reading is The Girls by Emma Cline. This one I'm going to be buddy reading with what everybody else is reading. So this is my first ever buddy read and I'm super excited. And also this is a thriller. So The Girls is about a cult. It's about a young woman who joins a cult. Now, The Girls gave me a really good idea. It turns out that 4 of the books that I want to read this month have the girl in the title, so I'm going to try and read them all this week. The Gallery of Unfinished Girls is about a young artist who is experiencing an attraction to another woman. She is also kind of like struggling with her life. A lot of things are going wrong, and she gets this really cool opportunity to paint in this mansion, and when she's there it feels like her life is going really well, but anywhere else it's kind of falling apart at the seams, and this is about kind of like how she manages her life. Then we have Who's That Girl, which is about another young woman. This one is an adult though, and an adult woman who has kind of like hanky-panky with a young man at a colleague's wedding, and her boss sends her to the Sticks, which is Nottingham, which is a city, so you know, not really the Sticks. And she has to move back in with her dad and her lay-apart sister while she works on the biography of an actor who she's convinced no one has ever said no to. She's trying to find herself. This, I think, is a romance. It was my pick for romance with pink on the cover, I believe, and I'm excited to get this read, although it is a chunker. Finally, we have The Girl He Used to Know. This was my pick for adult romance. It is about a couple who broke up and then kind of come back together as adults. Unfortunately, she suffers from anxiety and social anxiety, I guess, and he has some other issues. They're both chess fanatics, and this is about whether or not they can make it work as adults when they couldn't as teenagers. So that is my TBR for this week. Let's see if I can finish it this time, because obviously I didn't manage to finish my TBR last week, and I will see you guys later. So I'm in the same clothes because it is now a Sunday at night. We went shopping, we cooked some, we cleaned the apartment, I prepared my bag for this coming week. So I'm going to, you know, go to work and things like that. And I have been reading. So I'm inching my way through China Mieville's The City and the City. China is a UK-based author, actually, which I didn't know. And this is just fantastic. It evokes such a run-down feel in one of the cities, and in the other invokes such a like high-class foreign investment type of deal that the way that he's managed to merge the two countries in one physical place is astounding, and I'm just in awe. And I think I should reread this later on in the year and study it as a writing companion for my fantasy novels, because just the way that China does it is just beautiful. And I finished the first 50 pages of The Girls by Emma Cline. As I said, I am buddy reading this with what everyone else is reading, linked down below, of course. And yeah, I'm just waiting for her to get back to me with her thoughts. We'll probably talk about it tomorrow, because it's bedtime. But I am really enjoying this. That's a lie. I'm not really enjoying it yet, but I can see the promise in it. It jumps quite a lot in timelines, so we start off very early in the story. Then we jump to something horrific that happened. Then we jump several years into the future, like I think several decades into the future. Then it's back and forward and back and forward, but now I think we've settled on a time, which is in the past before everything else happens. We obviously know what's going to happen because we've had all those flashbacks, but it'll be interesting to see how it works out. So yeah, I've put little post-it notes in for the daily goals. So yeah, this is where I'm at. I'm probably going to be taking this on the bus and hopefully finishing it. I keep saying hopefully finishing it tomorrow, that seems to not be happening, so hopefully finishing it soon. so that I can pick up one of these more chick lit type of books. But honestly, I think I'm savouring this because it is just so good. Hi guys, so it's Tuesday. I didn't update you yesterday because we had another after work, which was just dinner at someone's house and then hanging out, talking, you know, that kind of thing. Eating a lot of desserts. There was a pancake muffin there, which was, it was so good. All right, let's get on to the good stuff. The stuff you're all here for, the books. So first we have China Mieville's The City and the City. I finished this on the way home last night. It was just as intense and beautiful and amazing and soul-ripping as I kind of like, you know, have been telling you for the past couple of days. So I'm not going to talk on and on about it, but I finished it. I'm so excited. I'm so happy. I loved it. The end. Then obviously I am buddy reading The Girls by Emma Cline with what everybody else is reading. We have, well, I am on page 150 now. This is written almost as though it's someone talking to you conversationally who's maybe not a little, like maybe hiding things from themselves or is a bit high and they're getting distracted a lot. I am really enjoying the way that it evokes summer, but not much is happening so far. She's found some people that she wants to be friends with and, you know, she's visited their ranch or whatever and she's met some people and, been alone with a man when she was 14 and he was much older. And yes, exactly what you think went down, went down. Overall, I am enjoying it. I'm enjoying the writing style. It's got a very engaging voice. I do think that the protagonist blames almost everyone else but herself for her problems, which is really irritating. Like, it's one of those personality quirks that I personally find very irritating. So in a main character, it's also quite irritating. And I also am looking forward to seeing her maybe grow up a bit. She was 14 at the time, but even now, she's very much blaming the way that society portrays women. And like I said, she blames everyone but herself, and that includes society and the fact that she was a woman and not a man. And I just, like, that leaves a kind of sour note in my mouth, but I'm hoping that it gets better. So yeah. Once I hit my daily goal on The Girls, I picked up The Girl He Used to Know by Tracey Garvis Graves. This has been super sweet so far. I'm really early days. I'm like page 13. I really love this cover. I think if I... Oh, it's so beautiful and simple. So far they have kind of like met unexpectedly, this couple. There's talk of, or there's, the main character tells us of bad blood between them, or she says she wouldn't blame him if he was rude to her or disappointed to see her. It's been 10 years kind of since they broke up, I think. You get to see her reaction to seeing him again and, you know, their conversation, but then you also get a lot of talk about her therapist and the coping mechanisms she's learned between being a child and being a teenager at university and then being an adult, and how they've developed. So this is really good. I think she has more than anxiety though. She says she used to rock and make noises as a kid to deal with people, strange situations that she wasn't ready for, and that as a teenager she now flicks her fingers to get, like, as though getting water off them. So I'm intrigued. It's kind of weird reading two contemporaries at once, especially since the voices are quite similar, and going between the present and the past is happening in both of them, but they are very different feels. This is like 2011, or 1991 and 2001, can't remember. So this is going between 1991 and 2001. I think this one's set in the late 60s, early 70s, so they are very different feels. This is very much a Californian summer novel, and this is more kind of like inclusive so far. It's very much like in her head and seeing what she's thinking, but it is kind of difficult to pick up a new contemporary when you're reading a contemporary, so I'm not sure if I'll be buddy reading a contemporary again. We'll have to see if I get used to it. My brain makes the transition. Hi guys, so it is a Wednesday night. I am so tired that I nearly fell asleep at 5:30 p.m, but I didn't. I'm still here now at 8. So we're succeeding in life. I'm interested to see where this will go. I am finding the main character incredibly unlikable. She steals and manipulates and is so desperate for attention that she will do anything for it. But I keep having to remind myself that she is only 14 and that, you know, 14-year-olds don't necessarily have their personality fully developed, and maybe she's a better person now that she's older. But I do see her judging women all the time. She's judging everyone she sees as either beautiful or not, and she says she did it when she was younger. Like, there's an actual quote that says, when I was younger I was still in the phase where I judged every woman I saw. But she also does it in the present when, like, there is a young woman who's dating a man that owns the house, kind of. Anyway, this couple show up in her house and they are young. I think he's 20 and she's 16, and she is so, like, judgmental of the girl, and so she wants to meddle so badly in her life. But it's good meddling, but it's still like, I don't know, it's a pattern for the main character. So I would love to see her learn something about herself, like learn to take responsibility, learn that she is kind of judgmental and how to be a better person, and that she can't change the world. but I am still enjoying it. It's got a very summery feel, like I said yesterday. And of course, the other book that I picked up is The Girl He Used to Know by Tracey Greaves. It is sweet, but it doesn't have very much substance so far, so it's a really good look at an anxiety-filled brain. The main character clearly has some social disorder, I'm not sure which one, and anxiety. She has coping mechanisms. She gets easily overstimulated by sensations such as touch, sound, smell, and it's kind of just looking at her relationship with this man, Jonathan. Her name's Annika. Looking at Annika's relationship with Jonathan in 1991 and then also in 2001. We don't know why they split up, though I can probably guess. And just looking at where they, you know, how they've changed over time and whether she and he have grown enough that they can be in a relationship. The only problem is neither of them really have flaws. They're both very sweet individuals who are constantly kind of like doing their best for each other. And while it's sweet, like I said, it's nice to read. It's more of a summer book, it's more of a slice of life, nothing is really happening. I'm not really enjoying it, it's not like gripping into me, but it's sweet, you know? Sometimes you need something sweet. Hi guys, it is the end of Thursday, which means it is time for me to give you a quick writing update. So I actually finished The Girl He Used to Know by Tracey Greaves today. This one was, like I said, not much happened until around the last 5 to 10%, at which point everything happened and it was so traumatic and scary and I was nearly crying on the bus. However, I don't know if it was worth reading the rest of the novel in order to get to this last part where things actually happened and there was like actual suspense. I mean, maybe if you understand dates a bit better than I do, maybe you would have picked up on what was going to happen a lot earlier, but I definitely didn't. However, I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, it was super sweet. It was a bit like having a sorbet after a meal. And yeah, I saw a lot of myself in the main character, who is eventually diagnosed with a developmental illness, I believe. So I do wonder sometimes about my own behaviour. But nonetheless, I did enjoy it. Like I said, it was kind of nothing. Nothing special and nothing that rocked my world, but I did think the representation was okay, although I don't know for a fact. The main character had definitely a generalised anxiety disorder as well, and she was written quite childishly sometimes, but very straightforward and I liked her. I am definitely not liking the main character very much, but it's still quite a good book. There's a lot going on now and a lot more kind of foreshadowing for what's going to happen, and also our character has been sexually assaulted and has stolen money and things like that, so she's not particularly, like I said, she's not a particularly likable character, but she is very young, and yeah, not much else has happened since the last time I updated you, really. They've stolen some stuff. Finally, I picked up Who's That Girl by Mhairi McFarlane. This is so far just a light contemporary. I have only read 36 pages. She has kissed the groom of a wedding and been seen doing it by the bride, so it's all about to collapse, I think. But this is a romance. It is my pick for pink on the cover romance, and hopefully I'll finish it by Saturday. If I don't, it will definitely count towards my romance-a-thon at TBR, so that's good at least. Today on the bus, someone left behind some sweets. Like, they had a bag of sweets they just bought and they left them behind, and I found them as I was leaving, so I gave them to the bus driver and was like, yo, lost property. But that's sad. I don't want to leave sweets behind. It's like the worst thing to leave behind too. You want to eat the sweets. All right, I've got nothing more useful to add and I'm wiped and I'm going to bed, so good night. Farewell. It's Friday, kittens, which means that soon it will be Saturday and I don't have to work on Saturdays. I am only 50 pages away from the end of The Girls. I am, as I said before, buddy reading this with what everyone else is reading. I'm really enjoying like discussing the book with her and discussing how we feel about the various things and why the author's chosen specific things. I think that buddy reading is making me a better author because it is forcing me to slow down when I read and really consider why certain things are happening and what choices were made and why the story came out that way, which isn't necessarily something that I really think about when I'm reading solo. I'm not really seeing a lot of character development for the 14-year-old in terms of this plotline, as in the current day, or in terms of the past when she was a kid, but there is at least something happening now, although it's still very slow. I think it might be slower because we know where it's building to, and really it's only the mechanics of what happened that need to be figured out. But still, I'm looking forward to having this finished. I'm not sure how I feel about having a metered number of pages to reach every day. I might try this again with non-fiction next week. I have a non-fiction book that isn't part of my bingo that I want to finish before the end of the month, so I might try partialing out page counts like I did this one in order to kind of encourage myself. It was definitely a motivator to pick up the book, and yeah, that really helped. But obviously normally I also do kind of like goals for the day which aren't as parceled out. So normally there's like a reach this page number. So I'm not sure if it would change that much, but it would definitely encourage me to pick up the non-fiction book again and again, which is something that I often struggle with. And then when I reached my page count, I picked up Who's That Girl? Who's That Girl is getting good. About a third of the way through, and kind of like we've reached a point where some of the conflicts are resolving and some of them are escalating, as they do in all good books. I actually really like Mhairi McFarlane's writing style. I think that the way that she injects a little bit of humour, but not an aggressive amount. You're not like chortling, but you're just kind of reading it. She also does a lot of research. I live in the place where the first 2 or 3 chapters of this are set, and have actually visited a lot of these places, and she even uses the correct taxi firm names, so that was really cool. She's definitely done her research, and I really love the characterization and the way that the character is able to spot when she's making mistakes and when she's kind of like faced with impossible problems, and how she you can see her trying to fix them. It is written in third deep person, which is really great for me because that is how I write, and so it's giving me a lot of tips and pointers for my own work, even though I write fantasy novels, which are obviously a very different vein. It is Saturday evening, which means it is time for my weekly wrap-up. Get ready! This week I had a TBR that presided primarily of books with the word girl in. The obvious exception to this was China Mieville's The City and the City. This is the story of a detective who lives in a city which is in 2 countries simultaneously, both with their own language and culture, and there are things that you are and are not allowed to see and react to. This was a really unique take on fiction in general, and I absolutely loved China Mieville's world building, his voice, everything about this novel. It was so surreal and yet so real at the same time, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars with an exclamation mark actually. So this one is definitely going to be a new favourite author, and it is definitely one of the best books I have read so far this year. Then I finished The Girl He Used to Know by Tracey Garvis. Tracey Garvis is a very well-known author. She has written a couple of romances that are very popular on booktube, including The Island, which is a forbidden love between a tutor and her tutee when they get trapped on an island after a plane crash. This one was a really sweet and innocent read. It was about a young woman who is tackling some mental health problems and development problems, and the man that she's in love with. They split up 10 years ago and have now run into each other in a grocery store, and we follow them both in the past and now as they try and make a relationship work, and we find out why it didn't work out the first time and whether or not it will. The ending of this book was really emotional and heart-wrenching and almost had me crying. I was full of tension, but that was only in the last 50 pages. Before that, it felt like nothing happened in this novel, and I really feel like the author could have been a bit more meaty with her characters. It felt as though they were just nice. There was nothing really of interest about them until kind of like towards the end, and that really made me struggle to empathize with them. I also felt that she wrote the female character to be quite childish, and that was almost irritating in places. Like, just because someone has a mental disability does not mean that they are childish. So, I don't know. I felt like it was a very wholesome book, but it didn't really bring a lot to the table, if that makes sense, and I gave this one a 3-star. The next book I picked up was The Girls by Cline. This is the story of a 14-year-old girl who gets pulled into a cult who will go on to do terrible and unspeakable things to a family, and we find out why she was or wasn't involved in that night. I felt like this was a really good beginning, and it had a really great premise for the first 2/3 of the book, but then it sort of fizzled out like a wet sparkler. I felt like the character didn't do very much growing throughout the length of the novel. She started off as someone whose opinion of herself and of the world was very much dependent on the people who could see her, and she ended that way. She was very selfish. We didn't really get to see in this novel anything really to do with her relationship with one of the girls, which was a very sexually charged relationship actually, and we didn't get to see if that kind of like if she had any feelings towards any other people. It seemed like she lived in really interesting circumstances that we didn't get to see as an adult, and I gave this book a 3 stars. Like, the voice was really enjoyable. I think I've said this during the week. The voice was really enjoyable, but nothing really happened. Finally, I picked up Who's That Girl by Mhairi McFarlane. This was an absolutely fantastic read. It is very chunky. It has over 500 pages, but I thought this was an absolute joy to read. It was very funny and had a very unique voice. Well, not unique, but it had a very bubbly voice, and you could really get behind the characters. Every single one of them was well worked. It tackles a whole bunch of things from online bullying to fame and trigger warnings for suicide and depression, but I felt this book was absolutely packed a punch, and the ending was a bit bizarre. I feel like the ending is actually the reason I wouldn't give this a 5 star, but I did really enjoy it. It's very much a novel of self-discovery and kind of like healing after trauma and things like that, so I really enjoyed this one. I did plan on also picking up The Gallery of Unfinished Girls by Lauren Cox, but I didn't get around to it this week and it's not on my TBR from Bingo-a-thon, so I'm just going to pop this one down for now. However, I probably will end up reading it this month because it looks kind of interesting. That was it for the week. It was 4 books, which is a pretty standard week for me. I feel like 3.5 to 4 is my standard. I did spend nearly all day reading Who's That Girl. It was a hell of a book, as in terms of it's very long, but it was also very interesting and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm glad I gave it a read. That's it from me, guys. If you like this video, hit like, and if you want to see more from me, hit subscribe. I'm Kat. This is the place where I talk. Hope you have something great to read and looking forward to hearing from you in the comments. Once I hit my daily goal on the girls, I picked up The Girl He Used to Know by Tracey Garvis. By Tracey Garvis Green? Nope. By Tracey Garvis Graves. That's the closest you're gonna get. Current plotline or the 14-year-old plot. I guess there is sequel bait. Ooh.